Well, look at this. A beautiful hamburger, and of course a hamburger starts with the bun. And I tell you what, if you'd like to find out how to make these wonderful little buns, just watch this video and I'm going to show you how to make the tastiest bun that you can ever make. Hello, welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. On this episode we're going to be making some bread. And it's going to be a very good tasting special kind of bread. This is going to be a bread with some basil and cheese in it. Oh, it's going to taste so good. And I'm going to make some little buns out of it, or we can make a large loaf. Either way you want to do it, you can do it. Come a little closer. Let's go over the ingredients for this, and wait till you taste this bread. You're going to be blown away. Now let's go over our ingredients for this wonderful bread. First of all, we're going to need 1 cup of hot water. That'll be a hot tap, and you don't have to boil it or anything. You just want about 110 to 120 degrees. Generally, tap water at its hottest is perfect for this. Now, 2½ cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons sugar, and 2 teaspoons of yeast. And the yeast, you can just use a single package. That's 2 1/4 teaspoons for a single package, and it works perfect for this recipe. Now, to flavor this wonderful simple bread that we're going to make, I'm going to be using olive oil, and we're going to be using some Parmesan cheese and some basil. We want fresh basil for this, okay? And once you've made this bread, you're going to be blown away, and you're going to be kind of hooked on it, okay? Because the flavor just really pops on it. Now, I'm going to be making some buns. I'm going to be using a simple ramekin, something just like this. You can use this. You can just put it on a pan and let it rise up by itself. You can make several small loaves if you wish, or 1 large one. This bread really lends itself to a lot of different designs. So let's get into making the dough. Now, the first thing that we have to do to prepare our dough is to get all of the ingredients ready. Now, I have here some basil, and I'm going to go ahead and just pluck these leaves off. Now, sometimes on your basil you might get a little tip burn like that once it's been in the refrigerator a few days. Do not allow that to worry you, okay? It's not going to affect the quality of the dish at all. Go ahead and use it. Now, what I'm looking for on the basil, and as far as quantity goes, I'm looking to have, after I chop it up, about 1/4 cup of finely chopped basil. And what I'm going to do, the technique is called chiffonade, and I'm going to show you the right way to roll up the leaves and hold the knife and hold the vegetable so that you can make this cut easily yourself. Now, if you notice, the first thing I'm doing is I'm plucking the leaves, and I'm not using the stem either. I'm leaving the stem behind. I want to use only the hardy portion of the plant. And I want to take the leaves and stack them. And you don't have to be terribly gentle or neat about this, but they do need to be stacked, okay? Now, once you get all of these stacked, let me get these little pieces in here. There we go. I want to take it and roll it. Turn this sideways so you can see. Very tightly roll the stack of leaves, just like so. And keep your fingers down on this. Now, when you're making a cut, let me pull off that end. There we go. When you're making a cut like this, you want the knife, the side of the knife, let me put this aside, to rest on your knuckles. You see how my fingertips curve under? And then there's the knuckle here. And as long as I have that knuckle good and straight, the side of the knife can slide against it and I can make cuts. And so that's exactly what I'm looking for. See that? And this way you don't cut yourself. Now remember, keep the thumb behind the fingers when you're doing this, and the thumb should be on the vegetable to help you control it. Okay, so we're going to make that motion there. So let's go ahead. I want to re-roll these leaves, get them tight. And I'm going to do a technique called a chiffonade, and that's where we're just cutting very, very thin slices. Now, if you'll notice, I'm using not an up and down motion, but a forward back motion. And the idea there is to allow the blade to cut through the leaf rather than chop through it. And you get less bruising that way. And if you bruise the leaves, it's not going to be a good quality. And see what I'm doing? I'm very slowly just creeping my fingers back and allowing the knife to make these real super thin slices. Now, from what I'm looking at there, it looks like I have at least, and I'm going to put what I have left right over here. It looks like I have at least a quarter of a cup. Now, I just need to do some cross cuts on this. Nice. I'm going to do that again. There we have some wonderful basil that's all ready to go in bread. It's not bruised, it's clean cut. And now you've seen how to do a simple chiffonade and to make it easy for working your vegetables. So let's get right on to making our bread with this. Uh-oh, looks like I got a little large piece there. Now, before I get started mixing all of this up, I would like to say if you do not have a mixer, don't worry about that. You don't have to really do a lot of heavy kneading on this, although I'm going to. It's not absolutely necessary to overwork yourself. What you can do is combine the flour and some water and allow the mixture there to do what's called autolyzing, which allows the gluten to form and develop so that the bread comes out really good. That is not necessary if you're going to knead it a lot, like if you have a machine. So I'm going to get this done a little bit faster. When you autolyze, you need to allow that water-flour mixture to set there, for roughly about usually 45 minutes, an hour is best, and that way you get full gluten development on it. And then you just knead in the rest of the ingredients. As you have it on your board, you just push it out a little bit, start pouring things over it and kneading them in. And you'll need to knead it that way for about 10 minutes worth, and that's going to be the maximum. Now, the first thing I need to do is I want to heat up some water real quick. I already have it pretty warm, but I want really hot tap water for this. So I'm going to allow mine to get as hot as it'll get. For me, it'll scald my fingers. My tap water on the hot side is really, really hot. A little bit much. There we go, 1 cup. Now, when you're going to be combining ingredients for bread, let's start with the flour. I'm going to place it in the mixer. And I'm going to add the salt and the sugar together. And I'm going to go ahead and use a whisk and just kind of mix those two in. Then pour in the yeast. Now, the reason you pour in the yeast after you mix the flour and sugar in is because you don't want the yeast to come in direct contact with a lot of the salt right off, because it has a tendency A to bond to it, and B, the salt will kill the yeast. And it does control the growth of the yeast in the bread. However, it flavors the bread, so don't leave the salt out. Now we have our flavorants, which is the basil and our cheese here, and that's about 3/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan is what I'm using. If you want to use a little bit less, like about a ½ cup, that's fine too. I like a real cheesy bread, so we're going to put it all. And for this recipe, it does require olive oil. And what I'm going to put in this is going to be about 3 tablespoons. And that's going to be a total of 1/4 of a cup when you do that. And that's going to make a really nice mix. Now all I need to do, I need to get my whisk out of there. There we are. Let's get that beater in place. And on this one we're going to be using what's called a dough hook. Different mixers have different ways of doing that, but it usually works out. Now we just have to wait for that to combine. My dough has finished kneading, and I went ahead and placed it into this glass bowl. Now it's important when you're rising your dough to rise it in a glass or a ceramic bowl, because metal does not combine well with yeast, okay? And what will happen is on the bottom where the bread is in contact with the metal, it won't get good rising, and it'll be a little different consistency. So what you want is to get good even rising, and I like to use glass for that. Now also you want to cover it, and I just like to invert a bowl over another, and that way I get a good cover. It's easy to see, and I can watch it rise up as it goes. Now we're going to keep a close eye on this, and we'll see how well it rises up. Give this 1 hour to rise, and then we're going to punch it down, rise it again, and then we're going to rise it a third time in the individual position that it will be baking in. We have been rising this for a little over 50 minutes. Now, look at this. This has easily tripled in bulk, which is a really neat thing to do. It helps to really give a lot of character to your bread. Now, I'm just going to work this out. And some of it might stick in there. Don't worry about that. I want to knead it gently. And all I'm doing is just rolling it under, folding it in on itself, see? And I'm going to put it right back in, just like this. And we're going to start that all over again. We'll give it another hour. My dough has risen up again. It has been 1 more hour, and I'm going to go ahead and glove up for this. Now, what I'm going to be doing is moving the dough from here to these bowls, and I'm going to weigh it out as I do that. Another way you could do it is just roll it into a cylinder and divide it into equal parts. And that's another way that I commonly do this. I usually don't weigh out stuff like this, but this time I wanted these buns to be identical. Now, for my buns, I've chosen to use a simple ramekin like this. You can use something like this, or you can use a larger dish if you would like. A cake pan works good as long as it has a nice straight side. And then I'm going to take some olive oil, place it in each one of them. Now, I don't need a lot. I only need about, just a few drops, as you've seen here. I take each one of these, and this is the reason I gloved up, was just so I could do this without getting my hands really messy. There we go. And I'm trying to get it up on the sides there. Now let's look down here and get an even division on what I'm going to be doing on my dough. In order to do that, I need to weigh it out. And in order to weigh it out, I need a decent scale. Kitchen scales are not very expensive. If you have one, they're a wonderful item. I'm going to put a bowl on this, and I'm going to zero that out. And also I'm going to switch it over to metric, and I'm going to weigh this up in such a way that I can divide it. And doing it on metric is a little bit easier for me to divide this, not because I'm used to that system, but just because that system allows for even division of numerical work. It's a little more simple that way. Right, 678 grams. And of course I have my handy dandy calculator to figure out what I have going on there. Okay, so that's 678 divided by 6. So I'm looking for 113 grams per bun. Simple enough. I'll use another bowl. We will zero that again. There we go. So, pinch off some of this dough, just like so. Remember, I'm looking for 113. That's 77. It's not quite there. There's 113, perfect. I can't believe I hit it dead on like that. It's amazing. Now, I'll take that, work that into a nice ball. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just something simple. And I'm going to drop that into the bottom of my dish there. Now, I'm just going to use some plastic wrap to put over the top of these, and we're going to allow them to rise again for another hour. Once they have, they're going to be puffed up and beautiful. So there we have it. 6 dishes already filled. And even though that doesn't really fill that dish well, you've seen how this cup puffs up, how it gets large when it's rising. And it does so very rapidly because it's very wet and has plenty of sugar in it. There's a lot for that yeast to eat. So now we're just going to wait again. Well, now our dough has risen up for the third time. I am going to pull my plastic back off of this. See, one of the reasons I like to use this plastic is because it'll pull right off of that dough after it makes contact with it, so it's not quite such a mess. Now these are looking really nice. I am going to do one last thing, and that is to top these with just a little bit of olive oil. There we go. And I have a brush here. I'm just going to gently brush this on. If you don't have a brush, you could use like a folded paper towel. That would work well. Just want to be very gentle with it though. I have my oven right now at right about 400 degrees. You want your oven between 375 to 400, and cook these up. It should take you around 20 to 30 minutes to cook these up, depending on your altitude. And of course, you're just looking to make them golden brown, and they should have a good hollow sound when you thump on them after they're cooked. So let's get these in the oven. Well, it has been almost 30 minutes, about 28 minutes now, and these have come out just beautiful. Now I'm tapping on these. You hear that sound? It'll have a little more flat sound to it than that if they aren't ready. That's a good hollow sound, so it is ready. Turn these over, give them a little bit of a shake. Well, that's all there is to that. It's rather simple, isn't it? I tell you what, let's slice one of these open. Let's take a look at it from the inside. Nice and crusty on the outside. And look at this. On the inside, look at the crumb on that. See the large pores? Beautiful. And the flavor? Nice and crusty. Oh, the olive oil just explodes from it. The herbs and the cheese. I'm going to be going nuts on these in a minute. In fact, I'm going to make a hamburger with one of them. So, I hope you enjoy yours, and thank you. Thank you very much for watching Texas Cooking Today, and you have a good day. Thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today, the show where you can get great recipes and the best techniques are taught. Please subscribe to Texas Cooking Today, where you will always find something hot and ready to eat.